a wind pattern, okay? As something tries to chase anything that's constantly trying to happen, or any kind of thought pattern that the Earth just liked before and it liked the motion, it just keeps repeating itself sometimes. And as quantum state happens, it makes a pattern. That pattern sometimes is measured. And when that pattern is measured by the Earth, or whatever force or whatever person tries to measure it, they try to measure what a pattern of quantum state. But they don't realize is that a quantum state sometimes, once it's realized, once it's used by something that's different, it changes that quantum state constantly. And as that pattern changes, they try to come up with a formation of different patterns to be able to realize something that happens in quantum state in a very often field of view, I guess. Sorry, I didn't finish that sentence. Details out as I can, because I am not going to tell people about this. As quantum state relieves itself, or turns into a different pattern, people have to understand that that certain pattern itself, changes. And as that certain pattern itself changes, it decides to copy something else. And that's the reason why sometimes people don't realize that they can't Wi-Fi hack people. They can Bluetooth hack because of a direct wireless connection, but they cannot wireless hack sometimes, and they don't realize it. And everything that's changed can be obviously changed back. So that's the reason why it's harder to wirelessly hack someone than it is. You have to hack someone when they're there, or when they're not there, or when they're doing something. And that's the reason why I stay off my computer as much as possible. Because I know there's stupid hackers out there, but I can't afford an antivirus. And my mom's told me I could have hers, but she never let me actually. But it's okay. It's understandably okay. So it's the reason why I know about these different things, because I've been tried to be hacked into before by a man who claimed to be an Indian man, and he was trying to hack into my computer. He was running through different systems, and I could tell because he was trying to keep me on the phone for as much as possible, telling me different details about my computer that I knew that he knew about because he hacked into it. He told me there was 15 people watching me at that time. I knew that those 15 people were wirelessly hacking me through a certain field. I didn't know how much control they had, so I let him stay on for a little bit longer to see how much he had. He told me exactly everything, and that's the reason why sometimes people can give you a tell, and usually their tell is if they're stuttering or if they're doing something else, they'll try to tell you, and that means they're trying to hack into your database. It usually means they're trying to hack into your database. So once he told me that he was, whatever he did and tried to say a certain word or a certain thing, it's just a certain tell. You can tell exactly the reasons why people are trying to hack into you if you're able to see someone with a phone that's trying to hack to you. If they're talking to someone else, or they're acting like they're talking to someone else, if they act like they have a Bluetooth on or a headset on, they're usually trying to hack. Understandably so. You shouldn't try to do anything, because I can be wrong a lot. I can be wrong a lot, and those people can just be stupid, or they could be dumb, or they could be acting like something because they're dumb. They could put plants out there, people who are different things, like oh, a walker, somebody's not the baby or anything like that. Nobody ever does that, because not only is it unbelievably stupid, but it's also extremely out in the open sometimes. So it's like people steal babies in some countries. So it's like, yeah. But understandably so, I didn't have any of that stuff, so I had to go with what I heard. So I got off on what I heard, and as he started to go to a different computer or a different screen, as he was trying to hack into whatever he was trying to hack into, or try to plant evidence of some kind or some sort at all, he was trying to look on his other computer. And as he's looked on his other computer, I didn't see, but I had noticed that he wasn't talking or anything. He was completely and utterly distracted by the fact that he was looking at something else, trying to go through my mainframe, either trying to see something or trying to plant something there. So if he planted something there, I kept my hard drive. I will bring it to either Geek Squad or to the FBI, whichever one I feel like. The realization of fact is that sometimes people don't know, and they change up their things. That's the reason why they change up their things. But sometimes they don't realize that they do this, and they do this a lot. They go back to the same patterns in a few months or so. And that's the reason why I waited, because I waited to turn my stuff in, because I have private pictures on there, and it's probably not always. And those private pictures are for me. And no, they don't have anything to do with any child pornography or anything like that. That's terrible and stupid. Why the? That's terrible. So, all right. So realizing that happened, I didn't want that to ever happen again. So a couple of accidents happened, and those accidents probably were done accidentally on purpose by me. I don't know what they did. I don't know what happened, but they were accidentally on purpose. I didn't want to be a part of any sort of stupid investigation. And that's why I keep myself out of stuff like that, because people are stupid, and they like to say, you're going to get a reward. Thanks, man. You're awesome. I don't hate you or anything. I don't hate the investigators. I just know that I wouldn't be of any help to anyone, and they would tell me what a good job I was doing nothing. And I would feel better as they gave me a pat on the back as I walked out of their building. I know that people like to do that. They like to tell people what a good job they're doing, but understandably so, that means they have eyes on them. And I would know the entire time, and I don't want to know that because I don't want to be in an investigation. So there's that. I'm a very smart boy. I'm a very smart man. So I just stay out of things because I'm not that person. I'm not a hacker. I'm not a dumbass who went to college for 3 9/4 of a year. I don't go to Delgado College anymore. It's stupid. But I also know what people try to do to me, what people try to say to me, and I also know what people try to say at all. They try to say they have the upper hand because they have some sort of evidence or some sort of thing. They try to say that they're better because they have some sort of clue or something. They try to say that they knew something because of something else. And all that's bullshit, because if you're doing that, then you're enacting a crime. You're doing something stupid, and if people find out, they'll freaking come for you, and there won't be any stopping them. So, there you go. There's a disclaimer. Don't do it. Don't fucking do it. Not safe for kids. Don't freaking do it. Don't do it at all. Don't do it. Don't do it at all. Don't. All right. Now that we caused the cyberpocalypse, you have to know. People out there have to understand that there are a lot of different reasons why people do things. Whether they think it's funny at the time, whether they think that it will be funny, or whether they do something drunk over the phone or something like that, or anything like that, because they think it will be stupid and people will laugh at them. They don't realize sometimes people's sensibilities. And I'm turning that off. Anyways, there are a lot of times where I believed in a lot of different things, and I noticed a lot of different stuff happening to me. And I knew that I was changing, and I knew that I was studying a lot of different stuff that actually was pertinent. I learned that there were a lot of different things as I started to realize what the chemical composition of a motherboard was. And I started to realize that there are different quantum states that enact and go through computers, and that's sometimes the reason why it gets so hot, because it's constantly recycles sometimes the air that's in your house. So technically, it's like so it makes everything smell like not plastic, but a weird kind of almost a diaper kind of thing. Because the chemicals inside of the chemicals that soak up certain batteries. Like if you break open a battery and you notice a smell, a battery that's been used a lot or something like that, you'll notice a smell. It's almost like a nursery almost. It's the reason why you know that you need to get, because I knew that in my nursery or whatever the place that I was at, whenever I was really small and I had to go to the hospital. But there were computers in there that were overheating constantly. It's the reason why they had that weird oniony smell. It's like a weird oniony smell after a while because of the chemicals that actually mix together. I knew I smelled that smell before, and it was when my dad, I think, was on a computer or something like that. And I think one of the first computers that was ever made. I don't know what kind of computer he was on, but I remember being a baby and I was crawling underneath him and stuff like that. And yeah, it was pretty harsh, man. It was harsh. So there are reasons why I believe in such things as quantum state, and understand that there are different quantum states or ionic bonds can move through someone, make a certain mutation, I guess. But there have to be a machine to actually do that. And thank God there's not. Thank God. Thank no one. Thank absolutely no one that there's not, that they didn't make them. Don't thank God, because he'll try to make it, and he's a dumbass, and I know he is. Because he's every stupid person that exists, since he's also omnipresent. Alright. Stupid person. Every person that believes in him, or believes in the power of Jesus Christ as their personal savior. I just farted. Alright, so believing in quantum states is hard, because, or even measuring them at all is extremely hard. I think that one of the first computers was actually made because of a quantum state happening and then not happening. Because they have to understand that it's like, it reverses everything that's inside of it. Whatever reflex or whatever motion that happens within, like, that's the reason why sometimes people have to realize that if something is dead, it usually stays dead. Like there are only a couple, I think, or a couple of certain instances of certain people being able to make a date. There are a lot of times when people can focus certain things and mimic quantum state, like a child being able to walk after his leg got taken out from under him. It mimics quantum state, but it's not quantum state. Like a bone reacting to something and then taking in a metal. Realizing that bones change themselves and constantly change themselves all the time, they don't understand that those things, they are abilities to heal, like those little corpuscles that are in when you take a bone apart or something like that. Whatever corpuscle there is, you cut any bone apart and you'll either see that there's either a big corpuscle or a small corpuscle. That's basically that's like the muscle of bones. It's the things that constantly tear apart and constantly reattach themselves to be able to make a certain part of yourself. And it mimics quantum state because we at one point during this Earth's construction and or whatever the hell you want to call it, evolution or adding of minerals and non-adding of minerals, there were a lot of times where people existed in quantum state, and people didn't understand that if I'd say, like, if someone says a name to a quantum state, the quantum state will eventually start to spell out that name in either motion or something. It's the reason why like some people would see a certain pattern and they like that pattern because that pattern didn't say anything or insinuate anything, and they realized after a certain motion, after a certain situation, they realized that pattern spelled out sex. That's not a prank. It's someone having a not a fantasy or anything like that, but being deprived of something and not realizing that they like that pattern because it spells out something subconsciously. So there are reasons why I think people would understand that word itself wound up in The Lion King, but understandably so, it still doesn't distinctly actually say anything really. So there's the reasons why I like Disney still. So also it kind of says a story about people who were actually in a fight, that the only people that are remembered are and also people should understand that Alice in Wonderland is based upon a story. Like history. Real history. Not just a story, but real history. And it wasn't a time when things were fantastical. It was the history of opium dens. At the time, in a lot of different countries, it was mostly Dutch, and but it was a lot of other different countries that actually took part in this. And this is like the really hardest part of a lot of different people's stuff. This is probably worse than slavery. Probably, definitely worse than slavery. So there were a lot of people who knew different things, who had lived with different things happening in their lives, and a lot of countries themselves started to participate in a lottery or in something like that because people would travel a lot and do different things. There were people that believed in superstition at the time, that believed that if you traveled, then your soul would travel, and that was a bad thing. To them, assuming that your soul would travel if you traveled. Unfortunately so, it's actually good to experience all the temperatures and climates that a lot of different places have to offer. But I choose not to because I'm broke. Not exactly broke, but I'm broke. Right now. Understandably so, that's the reason why. But realization of fact, people don't understand that there are a lot of different things that people really don't get. As soon as deals fall through and a lot of different things happened, there were a lot of people out there that assumed that opium itself had no side effects. Trusting certain governments and saying different things, and they said that there was no specific side effects that they had ever foreseen. And so a lot of people wound up overdosing in different countries on opium, not realizing that sometimes they were poisoning the opium because they didn't want to sell it anymore. So realizing that a lot of countries, including England and a lot of different places, killed off a lot of different people who did a bunch of good, who were just looking for a place to relax. Queen do no wrong, huh? Weirdos. Anyways, so this has to do with quantum state. I'm sure that people have all heard of Jack the Ripper, okay? All of his crimes seem so surgical and all that other different stuff. But it would seem that, I would say that I'd say a doctor from a different country, because those techniques were only used in certain areas. Because if you can tell the way that they showed on the movie, which is probably the way that they found the autopsy, because they wanted to be scientifically accurate or historically accurate, they have to notice that that technique of a cesarean section came from when a person would die and they were still pregnant. And that came from when a person would die and we were still pregnant, not in India, but in Egypt. When a woman would die and was still pregnant, the baby itself would be raised sometimes. Not unraised from the dead or anything like that, but they will be raised as their own sometimes. And I think that's where the story of Moses came from. A baby that was adopted from a certain person who had an abortion, but understandably so, that's the reason why the whole symbolism probably came from that all stuff. And that's probably the story of Moses. The whole dividing of the sea was probably because the water stopped, and that's the reason why. But because the people hiding bodies in the water and making a dam, basically, with bodies. The Red Sea, get it? So now we know that the Bible makes no sense. Through quantum state, people had to understand that they were getting ideas, but that quantum state was being misconstrued, and a lot of different people started putting on animal pieces because people probably would say in the wind or whisper or in messages that were coming in certain bottles that were being whatever the hell. I guess I don't know where they came from, but it said learn from the animals. And since there were no animals that much around, they had to find the animals and capture them and then learn from them. They learned that they would do different things and say different things. Understandably so, some of them put actually the animal's pelts on, not realizing that sometimes they had small microbes, and that's the reason why they probably wound up with cancer. There are a lot of times where people didn't understand where, but understandably so, that's probably the reason why they wound up with cancer. Because some mummified remains don't actually have cancer. They aren't preserved that well. So that's probably the reason why it wound up as cancer, because it probably formed in their body after they died. And it fed off of them as a microbe, and then completely turned into what cancerous cells are today because of its starvation and the fact that it died. So it looks like cancer, but it was probably a microbe. Blown the mind, son. 20 minutes in, bruh. But all that aside, quantum state kind of doesn't really have a place in places where there's a bunch of wind around and a bunch of stuff, because there's no life. So there's not a lot of life in certain areas in the desert. And we have to understand that if the only reason why something would happen that way, or something would be that way, and the reason why sometimes animals go to certain areas is because they want to get drunk. There are certain enzymes inside of the desert, inside of really high heat areas, because they want to die and become a part of something else and try to make the grass. Understandably so, if there's a lot of sand around, they don't understand that sand has to be moved around a lot and constantly brushed around to be able to turn into that fine powder, to be able to go through a process and be turned back into dirt. So, through quantum state, I think people don't understand that dirt itself turns into different kinds of different things. They say turning the whole sand into glass sort of thing, it's dumb, because the idea of turning sand into glass is realizing that something would make high heat so much that it would be hotter than the surface of the sun itself. So technically everything would wind up being a gelatin shape, but at the edges being so sharp that it could cut through a pizza that was made out of titanium or anything like that. Understandably so, there are a lot of times where people don't understand the lives of metals, and they don't understand that there are a lot of different things that people do to be able to make sure that that metals themselves stay alive, and they keep on moving them in certain areas or certain directions to be able to make sure that not to say that there are any directions that are charging them in certain ways. Oh man, I'm all over the place a little bit, but it's okay. So realize I drank an energy drink earlier today, and it's the only one I'm having, other than the one that I had before that a few days ago. And all right, I think that's the end of it. So realize that there are people out there that care, and there are people out there that want to see people do good, and realize that those people sometimes are the people who are just being there and paying attention. Sometimes they aren't, and that's the reason why you shouldn't pay attention to them. And we're gonna see if we can make this it's a cool one. I want a motorcycle in my garage. And as I'm driving back to my car, to my house, or to try in the video game, I'm gonna say that there are a lot of times where people don't realize that there are so many different reasons why people should be, like, not on guard, but just be ready, you know? Just not be ready for the terrible thing. Son of a bitch. Alright, so people are going to understand that they're stupid. People are also going to understand that they're stupid. And when they understand that they're stupid, they'll realize their mistake, and then they'll go home and they'll try nothing and do nothing. and do nothing at all, because nothing and nothing and nothing. And realize quantum state and the things that live there constantly, all the time. And quantum state, and it's like another dimension that we've never seen before. It's unexplainable by modern physics, and people don't understand it because they don't even understand the fourth dimension. So how could they ever even explain 10? You know? Yeah, right? So realize it, understand it, and know that it's there probably. And if it's not there, then it's probably not there. So realize it's not there even if it's there. It's quantum state. Yeah! Have a good day, guys, and be your own one-man personal metaphorical bomb squad. No matter if you're in a personal state or if you're in a certain person's state, no matter what state or country you're in, realize that there are people out there that care, and people out there that want to help. And understand that also, if those people don't have licenses, then they probably shouldn't be helping. Be yourself and understand that that I lost my license only because it expired. I got to go bring it to a place. I'm gonna go to UPS and get a notary because I gotta make Mississippi hand over my license. So have a good day and enjoy yourselves.